on a property that you're purchasing that's in a foreclosure or a short sale? Yeah, 6 months, 90 days if you're lucky. Okay, so in the case of an exchange, a foreclosure or short sale might not be your best target property to go out and acquire by virtue of the fact that you have a mandatory time frame to complete that transaction. Also, I have heard from escrow officers that if you're out there negotiating on a short sale or a foreclosure, it's really important that your purchase and sale agreement reflect that this is an exchange. Because if you put on there, say, Joe and Jane buyer are buying this foreclosure or buying this short sale, and then after months, of the approval process through the lender says, sure, we'll go ahead and lend to Joe, let Joe and Jane buy this property, we'll approve the short sale, and then somebody says, well, wait a second, this is an exchange, and the exchange company now has to step into the escrow. Do you think that's going to create a problem for the closing? Yes, it does create a problem for the closing. So, if this property that you're looking at acquiring and helping your client with is a foreclosure or a short sale, you probably want to make sure that that is addressed in the initial contract. So therefore, when the lender is giving the approval on the sale, that they know who exactly they're dealing with. Okay, who they're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, now, let's talk about some other surprises in the exchange world. I bought a piece of property, not me personally, but say I bought a piece of property in 2005 or 2006 for $1 million. I'm now selling the property, for whatever reason, in 2009. I bought it for $1 million. And today's market tells me that price is worth what? What do you think it might be worth today?
7.
7? Okay, you guys are stepping down real bad. But well, let's just say, let me be really optimistic and say it's $1 million. Okay, that's a good piece of property. Let's say I bought it for $1 million, and now I have to sell it for $1 million. Now, here you are as agents. You're taking the listing for the sale of this property. And you're going, you don't need to do an exchange because I know you guys give tax or legal advice because your clients seek it from you, do they not? Should you give tax or legal advice?
No.
No. But do they push you to the envelope, to the end of the envelope? Yes, sometimes with a fire hose. Why? Because they don't want to spend the $300 or whatever to get good, competent advice. But I assure you, being a former broker, they'll find $3,000 to sue you because you gave them advice. So stay away from words like should and you must and those type of things. Okay. So now you're listing this property for $1 million. And your client's saying, well, I don't need to do an exchange. I get calls like this, several times a week. But Dino, I'm selling it for $1 million. I bought it for $1 million. My next question is going to be, Joe, was this property acquired as a part of an exchange? Yes. Was this your first exchange, your second exchange, or your fifth exchange? Well, it was my first. Okay, so now let's do some math, Joe. Okay? When you sold that property that you exchanged into this property, what was your basis in the property? Or another quick answer, how much gain did you defer? Oh, you deferred $500,000 worth of gain because you bought this property in 1991 and you sold it in 2006? Okay, so you had a $500,000 gain. Was that an impossible number back then?
No.
It was so long ago. Our memories are gone. It was good, wasn't it? Okay. So now Joe's there going, well, I can't do an exchange. There's no reason to because I'm selling for $1 million and I bought for $1 million. I says, no. Here's how this works. For those of you that are not familiar with this. A 1031 exchange is not tax-free. A 1031 is tax what?
Deferred.
Deferred. So in other words, as an investor, I get the opportunity to not pay the tax man. So far, we haven't had any hits on this code yet. Okay, but with a $3 trillion deficit, I'm not sure what's going to happen. All right, but the problem here is that now I've deferred this. As a taxpayer, I pay what? No extra money for doing this. It's an interest-free loan from the government. So now I go to sell this property, I exchange it, and I exchange it to a new property. My new property is worth $1 million. Is my new basis in that replacement property $1 million? That's what I paid for it. No. It is the $1 million minus the gain I deferred on the sale of the last property, which I just said was $500,000. My basis in this property is $500,000, and this is just fast math. So even though I acquired it for $1 million and I'm selling it for $1 million, do I have gain?
Yes.
Yes. Here's the fun part. Now I'm over leveraged. Okay? I've got a large loan on there. Nick, what's the LTVs today?
Maybe 75 max.
75 max? I'm hearing more like 65.
70 to 60.
He wants you guys to stay for the class. The reality is loans are getting tougher. You know, people are actually looking at credit underwriting. They're looking at whether this is going to go or not. And Nick's going to, you should stay for this class because Nick is, I find, a very, very resourceful individual. He's got a lot of knowledge that he can share to help you work with your clients. But now we have new loan to values that we're dealing with today. So exchangers have some challenges, don't they? Okay, so this is what's happening in our world. Now, what happens when a property is being foreclosed on that was an investment piece of property? Do the investors get the same treatment as, say, a homeowner? No, they don't. They don't. So even though you might have a short sale or a foreclosure as an investor, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a tax consequence on that. Now, how many of you are familiar with a tenant in common DDSI? Okay, DDSI had a lot of tenant in common. They were master leasing a lot of properties, and in the master lease, they were making all the payments to all the properties. DDSI filed bankruptcy. Okay, so all these investors who have these properties that DBSI was the master lessee for are now in bankruptcy. So does that mean all these tenant in common people are going to have a problem? Potentially, yes. But there are creative ways of helping those that have deep pockets get out of this situation. Now, one of the things that we as a company have explored with some situations is the fact that if prior to foreclosure, because that's the next thing coming on the horizon for these kind of properties, okay? You've got a bankruptcy, foreclosure is imminent. So now, how do you deal with this where an investor who might have some deep pockets can save their way out of this and not have to worry about paying tax on money, by the way, they're probably not going to receive because they don't have any cash to pay the tax. So how are they going to deal with this? Well, there's possibilities out there where a reverse exchange could come in. Now, how many of you in this room have done reverse exchanges? John? You don't count. Okay. All right, very few of you have done reverse exchange. Very quickly, a reverse exchange basically means you're buying your replacement property and having to close on it prior to selling and closing on your relinquished property. Now, if there's enough time set up and the foreclosure procedure has not started, it is a possibility that the qualified intermediary could form the LLC to part title on the property that is going to be foreclosed on prior to the foreclosure. This is not a cheap transaction.